Yeah.
And by the way, for those folks that are listening, that is one thing that I would strongly urge, is that when you're going through a divorce, you want to pick people intelligently, but don't be afraid to have conversations. Because I realized that the more conversations that I had, the more at ease, the more peace I had with the process that I was going through.
What's up, Core Nation? Welcome to another episode of Coin for Thought. Today we have Ian.kerr here on the show, and he is a Senior Business Development Manager for BMO. So Ian's going to be telling us his story about his own divorce right now, and he's also giving us some tips and tricks on how to maneuver divorce and something that he's learned recently, which we'll get into on the show. So thank you so much for being here, Ian.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, thank you. So, so you wanna kind of tell me about your marriage? I mean, it wasn't for long; it was only a year and a half. But you want to tell me how it kind of came to that point where you decided that it wasn't supposed to be?
Yeah, that's a great question to start off. And you know, we all remember that day. We always remember that day. And that day happened when I asked my ex-spouse, would you like to come and get some therapy with me through corporations, which are great. And I've had the privilege of working with corporations who really care about their employees. And we had physical therapy, physiotherapy. We had psychological therapy available to us as needed. As part of our benefits.
Yeah, and so group benefits.
So, you know, I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity. I never thought I would have to actually exercise those benefits,
right.
But here I was in that situation. And again, to your question, the turning point was when she said, I'm not interested. So when you hear from your spouse that they're not interested in going down the road to help make amends and improve that relationship, that was a pretty strong signal to me that we're at the end of the runway.
Why do you think she was, I guess, not interested in going for therapy?
Well, with all due respect, too, you know, I always say it takes two to tango.
Right.
Some people during a breakdown of a marriage or a relationship, the one thing that I know, and I think a lot of us know out there, is that the timeline that the person is on, the individual people are on, is often very different.
Right.
So I believe at that particular stage, that she had already made her full decision that this marriage is no longer going to continue. Whereas I had the mindset that no, I would like to work on this relationship because I thought it was very much worth working on. So that's what I mean by having individuals, quite frankly, that they're on different timelines as far as that path to the ultimate day when they're divorced.
So when did that happen in the year and a half, would you say? When did you kind of broach her about therapy?
Oh, that was, I mean, quite frankly, that was right at near the beginning stages when things were getting a little bit rough. And I thought a lot of it was to do with the fact that we had just moved into a new home, moved into a different neighborhood. Her children from her previous marriage were also being enrolled in different schools.
Right.
So there's a lot of dynamics going on. And I thought, you know what, let's give the benefit of the doubt here. And that a lot of the dynamics that were present with that moving in and getting into a new home, et cetera, new schools, I thought that might have been just a sort of a stress point that we could work through, but it ended up being a stress point that remained, and it just kept growing.
Now, different couples, I guess, fight differently. Some people, you know, just really go at each other, or maybe you have one person that's really aggressive, or one person that's really mild, and then you have people that really don't communicate. And how would you define your communication, I guess, during your marriage with all of this going on?
Well, you know, given also we have to maybe take a step back, first of all, and my role as a senior business consultant with the financial services industry has me on the road quite a bit. Right. However, though, in the formative years of my relationship, that was very well established. So to offer that up to this morning and say that well, my being on the road was the impetus to the demise of my relationship wouldn't be the case.
Right.
So communication was already there. I just think that the communication started to take on different forms.
Okay.
What we communicated about was very much different than some of the communication and conversation strings we would normally have before we ended up getting married.
Okay, I see. So if you were to give an example, say.
Oh, well, quite frankly, I mean, when you move into a new home, there's a lot of initial expenses. So
Right.
what happens there is that you all of a sudden find that the need, your budget is a little bit different. It might be stressed for a little while.
So you're always talking about money.
Yeah, and quite
Yeah.
frankly, let's be honest, and we all know this, in our world, in a relationship, money is one of the major issues. And if you can't have a healthy relationship around money with the person you've chosen to be with and they've chosen to be with you, I believe that it doesn't set up very well. It doesn't bode very well for a successful relationship going forward.
So tell me about that last day. Did you move out? Did she move out? How did it all go down?
Well, listen, I was brought up with great moral constitution from my two parents. And it was the right thing for me to move out. I did not want to disrupt the children's living arrangements.
Okay.
That's just not something. That's just not what Ian Kerr is all about. So I moved out and moved back in with my parents temporarily. While we went through the divorce, etc. My parents and my siblings were very supportive of me as I went through that particular phase. So it was nice to get back to the family.
Yeah, because you had that support. You had people to talk to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And by the way, for those folks that are listening, that is one thing that I would strongly urge, is that when you're going through a divorce, you want to pick people intelligently, but don't be afraid to have conversations. Because I realized that the more conversations that I had, the more at ease, the more peace I had with the process that I was going through. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that comes from, and again, picking people carefully, that your morals are aligned.
Yeah.
So that the information and the feedback they're providing you is to nurture and nourish your soul.
Right.
If you pick wrong people, i.e., do not go to your favorite watering hole as a solution for your divorce, because it doesn't work. You want to go and see your friends.
Right.
Meet in a neutral setting.
Right.
Not in a setting that can take you away from having a good conversation about what is really intimate to you at that particular time.
Okay. So during that time, you had your friends, you had your family, and how long was that process of your divorce?
It's amazing, because I thought that, one thing I'll say for sure, anyone listening, a divorce is not an overnight process. The old saying about Rome was not built in a day.
Yeah.
Divorce do not happen in a day.
Yeah.
And no matter how simple you might think your situation is or uncomplicated it might be,
it's hard to break up a marriage.
yes, it is, because there's a lot of dynamics that now come to the fold.
Yeah.
There's the monetary, there's the asset splits, there's things of that nature. And everyone, by the way, goes from a more rational thinking to a thinking that I've got to survive. What is my future going to look like going at it myself?
Right.
And so as a result of that...
Well, they have to plan, right? And a marriage is a legal and financial union first, before it is a union about love. But that's not something that, people really think about when they choose a life partner.
Exactly. Well, because you know what, quite frankly, I think that most of us walk around and feel that, well, that's not romantic to talk about money.
No, it's not romantic.
It's not romantic at all. But, it's funny how when you look back in that 2020 rearview mirror, as I did going through the divorce, well, you know what? It probably would have been a great idea to have more concerted conversations with my ex-spouse about money. And I think that would have served us both well. I mean, as I've always said to anyone worth listening, it does take two to tango. So you're not going to hear from me today that it was her fault or it was my fault. We both put together and made that salad called a divorce.
Yeah. So are you pro prenup? Are you against prenups? Where do you stand? Like, if you were to, obviously you're single now, and if you were to do this again, how would you go about doing it?
I can tell you that I'm still a romantic at heart. So the prenup stuff, quite frankly, no. What I think is really more necessary in all of this is just to really have honest conversations right from the start.
Yeah.
So, immediately after my divorce was settled, you're out and about and you meet folks. I was very, very steadfast with telling them the absolute gospel and absolutely how I feel and what I would like going forward. I did not want to open up a relationship and start anything without them knowing the raw, true facts. And I think that a lot of relationships, the demise of them is baked in, because a lot of people go about and make a lot of effort to hide certain things from their spouse
Well,
or their
because
partner.
they might be embarrassed or they're really insecure, you know?
Right.
Yeah, which is natural, really.
It is very natural, but I'll say this for the benefit of the audience because I've been through the experience. Take a look at what's going on there when you're having those hard conversations at the beginning.
Right.
And then project you with an individual that you didn't have those conversations with from the start and ask yourself, where do you think you would end up? With those great conversations, it does bode well for a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
The avoidance of those relationships, however, bodes not very well for a poor relationship.
Right.
And I think that we have to develop, just as individuals out there, we need to develop more courage to be more honest, as you mentioned. We're maybe a little embarrassed or what have you.
Right.
We should have more courage to be more honest because
More vulnerable.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is how I am. And quite honestly, what I found is that in the efforts and the vein of being very raw and honest,
Yeah.
it's really amazing the quality of the responses you end up getting.
Yeah, you build more quality connections that
Absolutely.
way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And people
Absolutely.
respect. As a woman, I can say I would respect that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, it's just about laying your cards out.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when I ended up with my divorce, and I meet people. Yeah, I'm X years of age. I'm divorced. Move back in with the parents. How do you like me? Yeah. When you're honest with individuals after divorce, and you want to let them know, you want to authenticate yourself. You want to put yourself out there as an authentic individual. I'm not scarred by the divorce per se, but I am putting myself out there as an authentic individual. And quite frankly, you want to do that because those that will respect you, that's how you can get a relationship started. If they don't respect you for your honesty from the get-go and they're looking for certain material pieces to your puzzle as an individual, then you want to run quick.
So how did you know, like how much time did it take from you signing those papers and then trying to get into the market and trying to date somebody? Was it fast? Did you feel like you already, had that closure that you needed before you even signed those papers, to make it final? Or did you feel like you still needed more time? And how did you know that you were ready to say, okay, I'm ready now to kind of like put that stage in my life behind, that really sucked, and I'm ready to kind of start new with somebody else, and I'm ready to look now?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I could say, quite frankly, I learned is that the moment that you speak about your ex-spouse to someone else,
Right.
and you don't feel a tinge of anger, resentment, sadness, that's when you're ready to go out. So,
That could be years for some people.
for some people it can be,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons why I say that it's the vein of anger.
Yeah.
Because within that vein of anger, you're also awakening that reptilian side of your brain. And if that reptilian side of your brain is being awoken by your still negative, angry stance towards the relationship that you had, there's no way that you have a runway ahead of you that allows you to go forward with a new relationship. You have to leave that baggage behind. I mean, that's one flight where I'm happy to lose my luggage.
So did you go to therapy after? Did you feel like you needed therapy after your divorce to kind of get to a better place?
Honestly, I didn't, but I also believe that, and I don't want to be so dismissive of that therapy, but I think I benefited from the fact that I surrounded myself, be it consciously or subconsciously,
By people that love you.
with good people who have the same morals and the same, what I call, moral constitution as far as life is concerned.
Right.
And really at the end, with all of that support, it really wasn't necessary for me to see someone in the professional psychotherapist or psychologist.
Okay. So you went to this seminar recently, or you went to this workshop, or tell me about that. You learned something about the red brain, blue brain. What is this, red brain, blue brain business?
Yeah, absolutely. And with the work that I do every day, certainly have the privilege of really meeting and going through and working with some really high-level professionals that really understand the business. And not only the business, but the business in the context of being a human being.
Right.
No matter what you do for a living, you're still a human being.
Well, you have to bring humanity to what you do. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so these folks, and I want to make sure that I give them a nod. These are very smart people at a company called Optime, and we went through a sales training session recently.
Okay.
But what it did, it wasn't so much about sales. It's about the human, the human capacity,
Right.
the human condition while you're working and whatever it is that you're doing in your daily capacity. And so one of the learning modules was about, hey, you need to be conscious that your brain is divided about 50-50. You've got what's called the red brain, or called the reptilian brain,
Right.
which is very defensive. Okay, so when people are starting a divorce, they tend to be using a lot of their reptilian or the red brain side. As you go through the process and you start getting legal counsel and you start talking to friends and family, you'll realize that you're starting to tap into the other half of your brain, which is the blue brain.
Right.
Because after you go through that huge amount of anger, resentment, etc., you have to create some semblance of order.
Right.
You better, or it's not going to work out very well. And in order to get that semblance of order, you really need to be conscious of activating your blue brain. That's the side of your brain that is rational in thought,
Right.
quells a lot of emotions that are really serving nobody's purpose.
So you're in a stable place, really.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like your stable side, I guess.
Absolutely. It's that rational side. It's that side that allows you to get and take what I call a 360-degree view of your situation.
Right.
When you're using your red brain, quite frankly, you're really not getting that 360-degree view of the situation you're currently going through. So the blue brain, if I could leave it at that and say simply as a soundbite quickly, that blue brain is going to give you a lot more peace. It's going to allow you to start to heal.
Right.
But if you're preoccupied with the red brain, healing is not starting.
Right.
As a matter of fact, there might be even some deeper scarring happening at a subconscious level that you're not even aware of.
Right.
Making it very critical and crucial for you to really have a conscious understanding of the red brain and the blue brain within your mind.
So how did learning all of this kind of make you kind of in hindsight think about your divorce?
You know what, quite frankly, and it's really funny. Along the way, again, a lot of friends and folks that, you come across, Ian, I know what you're going through. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. I can't tell you how many times a week I heard it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when you're in the soup,
Was that frustrating for you to hear all the time?
it wasn't necessarily frustrating. I just felt that, you know what, thank you, but no thank you. It's going to get better. Okay, great. But I'm in a kettle of fish right now.
Yeah.
I'm in the soup now.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about 3 weeks from now or 3 months from now.
Yeah, because you're trying to get through every single day, right? And you're trying to make it through the day.
Exactly.
It's tough.
And one of the key aspects as well, and certainly would like to share some notes on that, it goes back to the blue brain, red brain, and that when I was back, and remember, through all of this process, you still have to work. We still have to earn income.
Right.
But the one thing as a professional that I could not do, I could not present myself and walk into offices and deal with my valued clients by bringing that baggage with me. So as a result of that, you are forced to shut the red brain off.
Right.
And really focus on the blue brain, because that's also really, quite frankly, that's part of you surviving. Because there's nobody really, people are sympathetic perhaps to you going through divorce,
Right.
but it's not their problem.
I find that men sometimes have a better ability to compartmentalize than maybe women do. Do you agree with that, or what's your stance on that?
If I had the privilege of being inside a lady's brain, I'd be able to answer that question, quite frankly. But I can't really answer that question.
Yeah.
There are qualitative aspects to our life. There's quantitative aspects to our life.
Right.
Quite frankly, I think that ladies and women, you have a better ability to actually blend the two together. I find that some of us men, we tend to be focused on one side, the quantitative,
Okay.
and we will then ignore the qualitative. The
Okay.
qualitative being the emotional side of things as well.
Right.
Being able to share how you feel as opposed to having that caveman response.
Well, it's hard because sharing how you feel makes you vulnerable, right? And you want to be able to share in a space where you feel safe. And I don't know if that's always the case, maybe upbringing or whatever the case is. People are taught that it's not safe to be able to share and to be open, right? So it kind of really depends on the person.
It does, and you make a very, very astute point about the background and your upbringing. I mean, again, that's where my moral constitution comes from. I've always said, people say, Ian, you're a gentleman.
Yeah.
Well, I am. That's because my mom, she raised me to be gentle, and my dad raised me to be a man.
Right.
So I'm a gentleman. Okay. So to answer your question, to go back with that, right? We tend to, as men, it's more about the quantitative.
Right.
We need to get house, food,
Yeah.
money, clothes, car. Women, we're going to get the house, clothing, car.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it in a way that makes everybody have a nice experience when they do it.
Okay.
You know, when I go and buy a car, I'm not too concerned about the experience of buying a car. Mm-hmm. But I would think that a lot of women, when they go and purchase an automobile, they also appreciate the experience that they have when purchasing the automobile. Mm-hmm. Whereas men tend to be like, what's the best price?
Right.
I don't want that coffee. You're going to charge me for the coffee, aren't you?
Right.
Right? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, it's that rhyme and reason. It's the two halves that should come together, and that's where successful relationships happen. I don't want to be completely negative here.
Yeah.
You know, successful relationships, what are they all about? Mm-hmm. Well, they're all about having an understanding and appreciation for each other's strong suits, if you will.
Yeah. So have you been dating now?
I have, yes.
Yeah?
And actually, you know, I was dating for well over a year and a half.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm still in a relationship, but it's up and down.
Okay.
You know, kind of like the toilet seat, it's up and down. That's what I always say. But it's something that I'm really appreciating working on. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, the good thing is that I'm not letting the hangover of the divorce have any part of the relationship that I'm in right now. And they are completely mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. But it took a lot to get there. Again, including that discussion about really having an understanding about the red brain versus the blue brain.
Right.
And having a conscience, being conscious about that.
Right.
And all you have to do is just become conscious of those two halves of the brain.
Right.
And I believe for those folks that are listening in that are currently going through divorce or maybe in a separated situation right now, just that alone should give you a real good boost about how you're going to go through this particular process.
Okay. So did you hire a lawyer through your divorce? Did she?
Absolutely. We did try to go through a more amicable route. There are, for folks out there listening in, there are other avenues.
There's mediators and things like that, yeah?
Exactly. Yeah. We tried that, but we just never got to I guess an agreement, alignment that both of us want to go that route.
Well, I think mediation is great for if both people are really aligned and they're willing to come together, and you know. But if there's a lot of that, you know, wrestling back and forth, you just might need to hire a lawyer because they have more pull, I guess.
Absolutely, and I know that a lot of folks go, "Oh gosh, here we go. We have to hire a lawyer." I mean, that's part of the impetus for the mediators coming on board, because a lot of people are really not they're not really enamored with hiring lawyers anymore for divorces.
Right.
But one of the things that I will say in the defense of hiring a lawyer is that it also depends on how busy you are as far as making a living. And again, as an investment wholesaler and a senior business sales manager, I'm very busy, and I felt that the best decision for me to make at that time is to pay for the expertise.
Right.
I talk about that every day when I sit down with advisors in the investment world. There's nothing wrong with paying someone to do something that is going to get done correctly so that you can focus on what you do best.
Right. Okay.
So a lot of folks will say, "Oh, you know, mediation's cheaper." It's cheaper, but how much time are you taking away from work? Are you truly staying focused on taking care of your clients?
So for you, it was the greatest decision.
Absolutely, it was. Okay. It was a critical decision. So if you're busy, I would strongly suggest you hire a lawyer. Hire them, pay them to do the work.
So how did you go about finding somebody that you really connected with, you know?
Well, again, it goes back to building that, you know, that moral constitution. So who are the folks in my life that built moral constitution? And that includes my parents, but in this particular case, they never been through a divorce. My friends who have the same moral constitution I do, I spoke to several of them. You know, anybody that's been through, oh yes, Ian, I do. You might want to speak to these folks. And they specialize in this area, et cetera, et cetera. So you get a little short list and you make your decision. But the one thing I would say is that make a decision. Don't sit on the list. Make that decision, make a call, get engaged.
What's a couple of things that you would recommend that people do during a divorce situation that helps them sort of reduce the financial burden of a divorce?
Well, first of all, I would take a look at making sure that you're just more conscious of your budget. Because during the process of a divorce, expenses can pop up here and there, and you want to be well prepared for that.
Right. Well, you have to move out on your own. You have to pay full rent. You're not splitting expenses with anybody.
Exactly.
And oftentimes that's why people stay in marriages that they shouldn't be in, right? To be able to split that because they can't afford to maybe stay on their own.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, that's the case in many regards. The other piece that I was focused on is you want to take a look at your arrangements you have with your spouse at that time, the spouse you're going through the divorce with,
right?
And make sure that you understand all the legal ramifications of those arrangements. In other words, we have a joint credit card. What do you do about that?
Right.
So things of that nature, joint bank accounts. How do I do that? What are the legal ramifications going forward of that arrangement? What are the possible conclusions to that arrangement through this process? And really take a hard look at your monetary instruments that are part of your relationship, because that's going to be the oil that drives the process.
Yeah,
it's really important.
So now you work in the segregated fund sort of arena. Why do you think seg funds are really great for people going through a divorce, or they're looking for that estate planning and they're looking to go in that direction? Why do you think seg funds would be a solution for them?
Well, seg funds, quite frankly, what they do is they allow you to do estate planning through a financial instrument, which is called a segregated fund.
Yeah.
And you can direct name beneficiaries other than your spouse, for example, to certain accounts.
Right.
And you're really talking about a trilateral agreement. It's between the insurance company, the annuitant, right, of course, and the owner of the contract.
Right.
And you can't break that trilateral agreement. So if you're looking for what I would call certainty and stability, segregated funds with the ability to name beneficiaries such as your child, or it could be even a niece or a nephew. It gives you the ability to direct assets to the people that you want to actually get the assets.
Right.
So in essence, it's a very simple way in which you can do estate planning without even involving a lawyer and going through a complicated process of a will.
Right.
So it does allow people, and as you astutely point out, going through a divorce or what have you, it does allow them the ability to do what I call estate planning, taking baby steps.
Right. Ian, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everything you said was amazing, and I'm sure everybody loved all the information that you provided. If you'd like to watch more videos, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos to come. Thanks and have a great day. Bye.